Hello everyone, this is Twinkle the Ice Dragon back at it. I'm calling on you, Perpet. Will you please be here? Can see you there, Perpet. Hi. Oh, Perpet's my guardian dragon, by the way. So, dragons. It's a word we hear thrown around a lot. Dragons are very popular, particularly in fantasy media, and within the occult, dragon witchcraft is becoming a more and more popular practice, although it's still pretty niche, but hopefully we're going to get it even more popular. I am Twinkle the Ice Dragon. I am a dragon witch myself. I am one of these occultists. I am also dragonkin, which otherkin has a few meanings, but for me personally, it means that I am the soul of a dragon incarnate into a human body. I'm basing a lot of this video on my own unverifiable personal gnosis, what I've experienced in my practice of working with dragons and being a dragon. I've also done quite a bit of research on this over the years, and I asked around some other dragonkin and dragon witches to get some input to make sure I'm not just completely crazy out of my mind here, which you probably think I am anyway. I think there are three main things that usually come up when I contemplate this question, that being divine sovereignty, divine feminine, and elemental magic. Dragons are very associated with elemental magic. And I'm sorry if you notice me looking at my tablet here. I'm not reading a script, but I do have some notes jotted down for pointers that I want to make sure that I go over in this. So let's first get into the divine sovereign, because personally I think this is the most important one, and in some of my asking around, most notably I asked my girlfriend, and her answer really echoed this. And this might not necessarily be the right word, but when I say the divine sovereign, I mean that the dragon is an indomitable force of willpower. The dragon represents absolute autonomy and refusal to simply coexist peacefully within a system that is corrupt. The dragon yields to no domineering or oppression. You can't really put the dragon in its place. That's just not something that happens. Something I hear other practitioners say that also rings true in my own practice is that dragons generally are not huge proponents of worship. Now, what is worship? Well, the word literally translates to service, but, that's generally when you're generally it's when you're bowing down to a spirit in a sort of servile and subservient position. Dragons are not a monoculture any more than humans are. There's a lot of variants. I'm sure there are dragons out here who would just love for you to bend down and worship them. In my experience, this is not most of them. Some are okay with it. But I think the reason for this is that the dragon is the divine sovereign. They're not really big on bowing down, and since when you invoke a spirit and work with a spirit, you bring forward aspects of that spirit within yourself. So naturally, when you are working with a dragon and learning from them, they're probably not going to teach you to submit, because it's not something that they value themselves. Now, divine feminine. I'm also looking over at Audacity to make sure we're recording and that my audio level is tolerable. But yes, Miss Perpet, divine feminine. What does divine feminine mean to you? Yes, divine feminine is something that's pretty ambiguous and difficult to really nail down a solid definition for. Divine gender in general is quite a contentious and controversial topic that I think most people are very, very much misinformed about. This isn't about stereotypes or gender roles or cultural expectations of men and women. It's something that's a lot deeper than that. And what I've heard that I think rings the most true is that the divine feminine is an energy of being much more than an energy of doing. When you're in your divine feminine, like, you don't have to do anything to be in divine feminine. Divine feminine just is. You know, the feminine does not have to prove itself. This is why I'm really not a fan of, like, makeup and fancy cosmetics and stuff. I don't really think that brings you closer to your divine feminine. It just puts you into, like, a stereotype box. Prettying yourself, dolling yourself up to, like, make yourself prettier so that you're, like, beautiful enough is very out of alignment with divine feminine, in my opinion. You know, divine feminine, it's not dresses, it's not makeup, it's not fashion, it's definitely not innately submissive, and especially not innately submissive to a man. The feminine is not defined by the masculine. In fact, if anything, the masculine is defined by the feminine, because the masculine is the energy of doing. Feminine is the energy of being, masculine is the energy of doing, and whatever it is you are doing, you want to make sure it is in service to what you are. You know, you want your masculine energy to serve your feminine energy, because as human biological being species thing, every single one of us is a mix of both masculine and feminine energies, traits, characteristics, and to try to be either all one or all the other is super unhealthy and just, like, against the nature of reality. It's a great way to drive yourself into psychosis and self-doubt. Now, the other factor I need to touch on is dragons are usually linked with elemental energy. Now, what exactly elements and elemental energies are is an entire discussion for a whole other video, but usually we think of the traditional four being earth, water, fire, and air. This is a good starting point for it. The way I think of it is, earth is the physical, you know, it's your body, it's how you move about the world. Water is the emotional layer. Air is the mental layer, and then finally fire is the spirit layer, is how I think of it. And then a lot of times we have a fifth element that's ether, prana. I've heard it called various things, and that to me is like the soul element. But there are more elements than just these basic 4 or 5, and a lot of dragon witches use a Draconic 9 element system. I don't actually know where this came from. I learned about it through working Dragon Mystic. If you want to learn about dragon magic and, like, working with dragons and just general occult dragon-y stuff, absolutely I recommend his channel. He's amazing. But in this system we start with the basic 4, earth, water, fire, air, and then beyond that there's light and dark, which sort of combine together into spirit. And then beyond that, there's Maelstrom and then Chaos. And I've seen other practitioners go even farther and add other elements. After a certain point, I think these extensions get to be a little redundant and unnecessary. But this is something, in my experience, that dragons are very closely linked to. Most dragons have at least one main element that they affiliate with. It does not mean that they are restricted to only working in this element, though. And it doesn't mean that they can't practice types of magic that are outside the system. Like, my own personal dragon soul, me as a dragon, I'm an ice dragon. In my asking around, a theme I definitely see crop up is the concept of dragons having hordes, which, personally, I kind of think this is mostly something humans have imposed on dragons. It's not really something that has appeared either in my own past life experiences or come up with, like, the dragons in my family that I work with. You know, I think it's that, like, you know, we all intrinsically understand that greed is bad, greed is evil, hoarding masses of resources while others starve is probably about the most fundamentally evil thing a being can possibly do. And I think that probably the reason this gets ascribed to dragons is that, for a long time we were like villains. We were something for the heroic knight to overcome and slay, which I completely disagree with that narrative of dragonhood. I think that it's like a hurtful stereotype, if you know what I mean. It's like taking the absolute worst traits that humanity can possibly embody them, and sort of removing them from humanity and putting them onto something else that doesn't look human. I really, really dislike that. It really rubs me the wrong way. And now, there was one particular response that I'd like to read. Alright, I'm sorry. Can I get my glasses on with this get up? I need to start putting holes. I need to start putting glasses holes in my masks or something so that I can just... this is not working. Ugh, I'm sorry. I'm just gonna have to hold this up close to my face. Hang on, I need a drink. This is The Other Space on Tumblr, which is a great website for learning about and discussing otherkin theory and related matters. They said, being a dragon means having a connection to almost an entire other world because I am something not from this planet as far as anyone is aware of. I am a creature that humans only vaguely know of based on stories and various interpretations, so on one side, I'm something intangible, and on the other, I have this whole secret identity intrinsically linked to the spiritual realm. I feel like a spirit myself sometimes, something meant to represent an idea, an archetype, an element. They specifically mentioned they'd love to have their story mentioned and shared, so thank you very much, The Other Space, and to everyone else who replied to me and shared their stories. You really helped, give me some idea of what I should go over. Thank you for watching, and if you made it this far in the video, extra big, giant, dragon-sized thank you. I'm not sure if I really even answered the thesis question of the video, but hopefully I at least gave you something to think about. And remember, even if you disagree and dragons represent something different in your practice, that's fine. That's okay. We're all allowed to have our own unverifiable personal gnosis. That's why it's personal. And, no one gets to boss you around and dictate your practice because it's undraconic to try to boss each other around and dictate each other's practices.